Welcome to Living on the Wire, a look inside how our league spends their waiver wire budget. And this week I'm going to talk as fast as I can because there's quite a lot of waiver wire action. So I'm just going to get to it. I did also have to do a little bit of fact checking as it was the trade deadline day, and so there was quite a few players moving, more than usual it felt like, for that final day. Hopefully I have my teams and my facts and my players straight. Feel free to correct me in the chat if I've got anything wrong. And we start up with the big bid boys as usual. Now with $18 for a new tight end, Big Herv's out. He is injured. He's not going to play, which is a bit of a shame, but the Vikings aren't too worried. They've picked up Hawkinson, so they're happy. But it means that Brian and Tomahawks had to go looking, picking up Greg Dulcich, if I'm saying that properly. Probably just murdered that boy's name. Poor Greg. But if I'm not mistaken, did you not pick up Big Herv just last week? Or maybe it was the week before for $20. So that's $38 in the last fortnight on tight ends. So I hope for your sake, Brian, that that's you solved the problem and that you don't need to go fishing for it anymore. And then Telfie at the Sea Snakes, $10 dropped just for Caleb Huntley, a running back who probably will be good for a week or two, picking up a few touches and getting you a few points. However, I hope it is just for bye weeks because, as Robin knows, Cordero Patterson's going to be back hopefully soon. And as soon as he is, he sees the ball more often than any other human being on the planet. His name is said constantly if you go to a Falcons game, and Huntley will quickly be on that bench, just waiting. And Downey at the Dragons, picking up Devin Duvernay, and I couldn't resist it, but Downey's Dragons picking up Devin Duvernay, it's all about the double D's in that one. And he's a boomer, bust, flex, or buy option pretty much every week because you just don't quite know what that Ravens offense is going to do. But he seems to be playing well at the moment, so great option there for bye weeks. And Elijah Moore's really been doing nothing there at the Jets, so money well spent, I think, there from Downey. But only time will tell. And next is Mikey picking up a kicker for the Balvenie Bruins because he knows kickers win games. So you've got to have a viable option in there, and he's picked up Butker, and he wasn't the only one looking. And that $7 was needed to win the day. In our slightly smaller bids for these players, our little bitty boys, the Seahawks are the #2 ranked defense in our league scoring system. I was surprised more teams didn't go in for the Seahawks. I did myself, but missed out. And Downey's Dragons have managed to pick them up. And then Steve has picked up the Ravens. They're the #7 ranked defense at the moment. However, they seem to be improving, and that Ravens team seems to be settling and improving. And they've got a juicy matchup there, so he'll be hoping that he can get his points from them. And he's not dropped his defense either, so he's got them from when they come back from their bye week. So if you've got the space on your bench to hang on to those players and those defenses that help you win games, why not? So only a few dollars spent there by Steve, could be some smart money. And then Alan, who went to pick up the Green Bay Packers and has dropped to the Jets. Might seem a bit strange, the Jets defense has been doing quite well and the Packers are at a lowly 16th, but I think this one's all about matchups. Alan's had a little look at who's up against who, and he knows the Bills offense is probably going to put up a good amount of points in that divisional contest against the Jets. So he's gone for the matchup, only a couple of dollars spent, and he'll be hoping that that one works out for him. And that is, I believe, all the defenses that I failed to pick up this week. So not great for me, but I think Downey, Steve, and Alan will be pretty happy with who they've got. But I did manage to pick up the Big Bird. The Big Bird playing well for the Dirty Birds. He's had a few good games. I think he's another one of these boomer bust options where if he just happens to get the ball in for a touchdown, he's going to score you into the teens, but he's probably more like a sort of 4 or 5 point guy. But he might just get me through this bye week, which is all I really need him to do, and not a lot of money spent, so low risk. And our cheapest chips. The Owls finally realising kickers matter, and Andy has dropped Jake Elliott, who, to be honest, I think he's probably hung on to because he is playing at the Eagles. A little bit of brotherly love there, hanging on to Jake Elliott longer than he maybe should have, because he's not been fantastically consistent. And then we got Chase McLaughlin coming in, who replaced Keith at the Colts and has been doing fantastically well and has risen right up there to be one of the league's best kickers, despite missing the first couple of games of the season. And then we have the Blobfish picking up Joshua Parker as a wide receiver option, probably just to cover bye weeks once again, and dropping Russell Wilson now that he is no longer needed. Surplus to requirements now that they have signed Jimmy G. And then Keith at Smokeheads, again, just bye week kicker replacement. Prater coming in to replace Gano. Gano's been playing pretty well this season though, so we'll be hoping that after the Giants bye week he can pick him back up. But Prater's a decent enough kicker. He won't be too upset if he can't. And then Brian picking up James Cook at the Tomahawks. He has a couple of good games, a couple of good scores, but he's not really been consistent. He's not been getting a lot of action there at Buffalo. They have a little bit of running back sort of difficulties there. They can't just seem to find that guy that really unlocks their running game, other than, of course, Josh Allen. But we're going to come into that in a minute. We'll look a bit more closer into that one, as a big trade has just changed that situation at the Bills. And then here we go, our afterthoughts. Nothing special here. We've got the Balvenie Bruins picking up the Chiefs, dropping the Colts. I think the Colts up against the Pats, it's just a little bit of a kind of sketchy matchup for a Colts team that's not doing well, and the Chiefs are just back in after a bye week. And then Conklin's starting to heat up at the Jets. There was a lot of hype around him going to the Jets at the start of the season. Talented young tight end. And finally, it seems to be working. He's picking up those points, a couple of good games in a row, and Danny Dimes there, surplus to requirements. So Allen's hoping he's got his backup tight end there for covering the San Francisco bye week. And then we've got just your usual swapping kickers, swapping defenses to cover these bye weeks, with San Fran on the bye there, Robin picking up the Raiders, and Jason Sanders as a kicker coming in for Will Lutz, who's been a bit up and down anyway as well. So not really big moves there, pretty easy pickups after the trade wire was finished. And then here comes the start of Brian's madness. Is Isaiah likely to keep this up? He's picked up Isaiah Likely, dropped D'Ernest Johnson. Likely's been playing pretty well. A couple of good games in a row there for the Ravens. He's picking up those points. So why not have a little look if you've got to cover for bye weeks at tight end? But then immediately, Brian's had a little look and a little think. He dropped James Cook because with Buffalo signing another running back, he moves further down the pecking order and is even less likely to get touches. So he's brought in Brock Wright instead. And then he's dropped Isaiah Likely, maybe because he already had his tight end option solved, didn't really feel a need to have a second one there. And he's picked up Deion Jackson, who might be in line to get more targets now that they have moved on from Nathan Hines as the backup there to Big T. And then Downey snaps up Isaiah Likely just as quickly as Brian had dropped him. And so that's two players signed by Brian and then immediately dropped by Brian for two other players. I think a lot of that was about how crazy the trade deadline was, and if you weren't keeping up to date with it, you probably could miss a few things and make a few mistakes. I know that if I'd been paying a bit closer attention this week, I might have made some different options and different offers going through the waiver wire myself. And then finally, the last one that I picked up before I stopped for the day was the Blobfish picking up Rivers and dropping Johnson. Kind of a mediocre running back picked up for dropping another mediocre running back. I can't say I'm scared. I can't say this one's filling me with fear for our matchup. These are probably going to be the words that bite me in the ass as Rivers puts up 20 points and smashes me for the Blobfish. But I'm hopeful. I think this is going to be a good week for my team. I've done a bit of a rebuild myself, so I go into it unafraid of Rivers, but I wouldn't have been afraid of Ty Johnson either. And then that was as fast as I could possibly talk my way through these, so sorry if I missed any details out or any trades out. Sorry if I've missed your player, if I went through that as quickly as I could. And on to the awards. The big spender this week, Brian, picking up 100 players, dropping 100 players, but he did also put those big bucks up for his tight end right at the start. Saving up goes to Greg Stark at the Loch Lomond Lions, who, not having to shell out a lot of money when you're winning and if you don't have lots of bye weeks at the same time, has managed to keep a hold of most of his cash. He's still in the 80s. And then I gave myself at the Wildcats the You Tried award because I tried so hard to pick up a defense to replace the Titans. And as I said, I'm not too worried. The Titans have been pretty good to me. I'm sure they can be good to me for one more week. But it was disappointing to miss out on those Seahawks. Not to mention my backup choices like the Ravens, who also went past me. But when you spend the whole season spending a lot of money trying to rebuild your team every single week, towards the end, you just don't have that much left. And hey, we're not even that close to the end yet. Still a few weeks of torture to go for those teams that aren't doing well. But as always, I hope you picked up the players that you needed. I hope you spent your money wisely and that you're all set for this week. You filled and plugged all those gaps for your bye weeks and that you're ready to go. May the fantasy gods be kind, but except to the blobfish. Fuck you, blobfish.